Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Three Cups and a Dash, where the three ladies are going to read some Reddit stories and just share their thoughts and opinions. Enjoy and play the music. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Three Cups and a Dash. Joined with me, by me, are the lovely Michelle. Hi, Michelle. You're not R, but
hi, Stacy. Hi, Carissa.
Hi, Carissa.
Hello.
I was going to actually say are the lovely Michelle and Carissa and make it an actual sentence, but then I just fumbled it in my head because I realized that I said R wrong. You know,
we're having an eclipse, so it's just one of those days.
I like to think she's just so excited to see us because I actually haven't seen your faces in about 2 months, and this is making my heart so happy.
Yeah,
has it been 2 months?
Yeah. It's been a long time.
And Michelle's first comment when she saw me was, "I really like your glasses." So
I do like the glasses.
They make me so happy because they look like a cartoon. That's pretty much that's that's what it comes down to. I saw them and I was like, they look like cartoons.
They're perfect. So, ladies, what are we talking about today?
Reddit stories.
Reddit.
From the grave, apparently.
Kinda. I mean, yeah. I think Stacy is a paranormal one, so.
Sure do. I do have a paranormal one.
Well, I thought we were doing spiritual awakening. So I have a spiritual awakening one.
You know what? When you texted spiritual awakening and then Stacy texted paranormal, I was like, I'm just going to do spirit guide and then we can all, right?
What about a paranormal awakening?
There you go. I've had that.
Continue to have it every day. It changes every single day.
It does. That's very true. And I know Michelle had said that she had a really good one about it. So I'm kind of like, here's what I'm going to do is I am throwing Michelle directly under the bus so she can share her story. And we'll kind of go from there because she's excited.
Okay, here we go. So here's my story on a spiritual awakening. I've always had a fascination with spirituality. At first, it was all the paranormal stuff. Ghosts, Ouija, reincarnation, Bigfoot, and angels. While these things were talked about at my grandparents' house, it really wasn't discussed in my own home. I was raised going to church every week, and looking back, I'm sure those closest to me felt that my considerable interest in the paranormal was just a phase I was going through. I think we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
Then as a young mom, my fascination with angels started to guide me. I read about them and I wanted to explore my own angelic connections. However, with little kids at home to care for, the timing wasn't right. I knew something had to give, and so I allowed myself to get swept up in their schedules and all my other responsibilities. Many years later, my kids went to college and I found I had a lot more time on my hands. While this would have been a great time to rediscover myself, that thought was overwhelming. Where do you even begin? So instead of going inwards, I packed my days just to keep busy. I found myself caught up in a fast-paced world of my own, creating. No time to think, no time to feel. I just got pulled along with everybody else. That all changed in August of 2019 when I was on a trip with my husband. We were visiting our friends and staying in their home. That night, I noticed that the light in the closet kept turning on and off all by itself. So I just watched it with curiosity until I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, we were headed to the airport. At 6 a.m., our friend knocked on the door and said there had been an accident on the interstate. He suggested that we leave early, just in case. So we quickly packed our bags and we left. Without any delays, the airport was already about 3 hours away. But fortunately, along the way, we never experienced an accident or a slowdown. And as a result, we arrived at the airport 4 hours before our scheduled flight. Not being one to sit still for very long, I decided that I would walk the concourse to get some exercise. I put my earbuds in and started listening to a podcast. The guest that week was an aura reader. I was fascinated and very curious. I hung on to every word she said, and I felt a slight shift within my soul. That night, we stayed in a hotel, and I was blessed with a visitation from my grandma. She visited me in what I can only describe as a dreamlike state. It was a vivid experience, every detail etched into my memory, every detail etched into my very being. I could see her, I could smell her, and I could feel her in my arms as we hugged. Then, in a moment of clarity, I remember she had passed away, and I immediately woke up. My heart was racing. What had just happened? Was that real? And then, as I was frantically going over every detail in my mind, the light on the phone in the room started strobing. And I heard, or maybe I just thought, there you go. And it was a confirmation. That confirmation changed my life. Although the world around me continued to spin in fast-paced chaos, internally, my everything felt slowed down. I was more aware of my surroundings, more connected to myself and that which is greater, more curious, more open, more intentional, more observant. It was a different state of being, and I was so grateful to finally be there.
Aww.
That makes me so happy.
I know. I love that. So this really took her beliefs outside of that box, which is super cool. I love that.
It really did. And it was that conflicting information coming in as a child. Like, I go to church and this is what they're telling me, but yet my interest is here. I'm being pulled here.
Well, I mean, that in itself is a demonstration of taking your belief system and not holding it to make it heavy, but to allow yourself to grow. A friend of mine once said, when we hold our beliefs like an anvil, it will break our foot if we drop them. But if we hold our beliefs like a feather, we can easily shift it and allow more to come in. And I don't know what about that analogy I always loved, but that is, we should have solid beliefs.
It's flexibility too in your beliefs,
and grow in your beliefs, right?
Nothing fits in a box.
Right.
Just like what we talk about, we're constantly learning about everything. Yeah. And I just learned about something new just the other day, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Okay, like now this is making my brain explode a little bit, but it's okay.
It is okay, and we are always morphing. We are always changing. And sometimes the universe has to catch up, or sometimes the universe has to open up for us. So there's that element of universal timing there. There's that element of the clues started coming in, subtle at first with the light going on and off. Then hearing this podcast, that was so profound. And then the grandparents' visit. I mean, it just was all that building energy to that point. You couldn't deny it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's also being open to those things too. Because it's easy. Like, I think one of the examples that you used is she just watched the light go on and off with curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. Just being open to the experience, being open to what it could be, would be, should be, whatever. But instead of, being fearful or saying it's just a short, being open and just curious, kind of opens you up to more. It's like, it's just a beautiful thing.
And that's exactly how it feels. It's like a light switch has flipped. And while you're so caught up in the greater, bigger picture of living your life, just making it day to day, to have that still going on around you, but then have this like micro climate or micro environment in which everything is just slowed down. And it's like you're taking time to smell the roses or to notice those little things. And they're going to be sticking out even more because you have slowed it all down.
And also allowing yourself to be open to that too. I think one of the coolest things is whenever you do have that set belief system where you're taught like this is how the world works.
Right.
Step 1, step 2, step 3, particularly in the practice of certain, religions, and there's no judgment here. You're not necessarily allowed room to
grow,
think for yourself, add on, question, anything along those lines.
You're not allowed to have an agency, self-agency.
Right. And I think what's beautiful about this is even with that and that belief system, she was still listening to podcasts that were not necessarily considered, run of the mill or anything along those lines, but instead just kind of opening herself up to all possibilities. And that, like, to me, that is where absolute beauty lies. Because if we can't be open to all possibilities, nothing is possible.
That's so true.
It's just black
and we don't grow.
Right.
The society, it's so interesting because I went to a Baptist private school when I was little. So it's so interesting that some kids can go through all of that church reform, everything. And then they come out rebellious saying, no, I'm going to think differently. And it's so interesting how some personalities just get even more entrenched into it. Like it could really backfire if you push a kid into a religion. But I don't know, find it interesting. The personalities.
Isn't it usually like extremes? Like you can push them really hard into it and that's all they'll ever see. Or you can they'll go the exact opposite. It's like, I know I was reading a study once where like drug addicts, for example, their children, alcoholics, their children tend to be one extreme or the other. There's no like, it's either I never touch anything or I have the same issue.
Yeah. It's so interesting. But I was the kid in middle school. I had to go Saturday and Sunday, 7th and 8th grade for confirmation. And I remember the pastor, he was talking about the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost are all one. I'm like, oh, so Jesus is not God's son. They're the same. No, Carissa, that's not what I'm saying. Well, but what? He goes, Carissa, just listen to But I was always like that as a kid.
I always asked the questions and nobody gave me answers.
Yes,
and
no.
Basically tell me to shut up.
Basically, yeah.
I think that's what kind of stemmed my respect for religion because I started doing my own research and then my harnessing of belief in everything, basically.
Yeah. That was a cool one.
That is a cool one.
Well, I have an admission to make right here. That was not a Reddit story.
You wrote it?
That was my story of awakening.
Did you put it on Reddit?
No, I just wrote it last night because I have this blog to write and I'm like, it could like be two birds with one stone. I can share a story and I can write a blog too. But there is a reason why I chose to share my own story. I am not a Reddit person. It is not in my generation. It's something new to me. So when you're like, go find a story, I did try. And the story that I found went like this. And it was called What's the Story of Your Awakening by You Growing Medium. And it said, I've seen a few comments saying things like, my awakening happened X months ago. This made me curious. My awakening has been a process, like an ongoing, layered, deepening, occurring over several years process. I'm not sure I could pinpoint only one time when it suddenly shifted. So as I reflect on and piece together my own story, I would love to hear from you. What did your awakening look like? Specifically, what realizations did you come to and how did you know in the moment that it went from asleep to awake? And I love that so much. And I couldn't find any other stories that answered that. And she had so many valid points because this has been a process my entire life. I always had an interest in the paranormal. I always was pulled that direction. As I said in the story, it was more like, it's probably like, oh, it's a phase she's going through. Let's just let her get it out of her system. But it wasn't a phase. And so I just thought, could I pinpoint a moment? And I could. And so that's what I shared was that moment to me where everything stacked up and I could hear it, I could see it, I could feel it, and decided to share my own story.
I love that.
I thought you guys would have been, that's Michelle's story. But I fooled you.
You know, I was just open to all possibilities there. See what I just did there? Wasn't that magical? Just being
Her beliefs were a feather. Her beliefs were a feather.
They were a feather. So
my beliefs were a feather and I was just open.
Well, thank you for listening to my story. Again, it really was based off the other Reddit story. And I'm like, I can pinpoint it, but she's true. It's always growing. It's always changing. It's always shifting. So where did it actually start? I'm not sure, but that's the moment where it all just lined up for me.
And how old were you?
48, 49.
Yeah.
No, I had to wait until I did what I was supposed to do, which was, being a mother, being a wife, showing up for everybody else. And then finally taking the time to be like, well, who are you? Who is Michelle? What is she all about? And when I could finally step into that, I was open for the rest.
And your kids' astrology chart needed you to feel that role so they can complete what it was like for them to grow up with that role. So, yeah, it wasn't supposed to. You would have changed then their storyline.
Exactly.
Carissa, you said something earlier to me.
What?
And you said, according to my chart, I should be working with kids, right?
Well, you have that Cancer. Well, your ascendant is Virgo. The ruling planet of Virgo is Mercury. If you go to Mercury, it's in your 10th house in Cancer, and it's that nurturing mother. So you would do really well working with kids. I mean, you can't like pigeonhole, like this means this, but
being open to it, I'm wondering if that is why. And I apologize, Michelle. Like, I'm not trying to take this away. It really just like clicked because that's why shift is needed, because I'm not really fulfilling the things that could be at this point in time. So it just, for some reason, it just like, it just really clicked. So thank you.
Yeah, that's the universe working with us too, right? Universal timing. It knows what we need to hear when we need to hear it. So
it was very interesting because it really felt like, oh, maybe that's why the struggle is there. So just in aside,
because it really shouldn't be too much of a struggle. I mean, we have like life is a struggle, but it shouldn't be that much of a struggle. And if it's that much of a struggle, you're not on the right path.
Right.
Mine's short because I didn't want to read a lot today, so I'll do mine.
Well, Carissa, you read yours next for sure, but I feel like you and I are on the same page with that because when they're really long, I'm like, nope.
Well, I have a long one and it's really good, but I was like, I don't have it in me today. I'm so relaxed and sorry, guys. This actually piggybacks on what you were just talking about, Stacy, so that's cool. So I just looked up and read at Spirit Guides, and someone wrote, there's been a lot of moments in my life where situations could have gone worse, but were somehow avoided, like feeling something tap on my brakes when I was just a few feet away from an accident that was about to happen. I was wondering if anyone else had similar experiences, more in depth concerning spirit guides. And then this person wrote, sitting in my back seat, heavily pregnant and preoccupied with house hunting, when I clearly heard a voice saying, blank, her name. Oh, and this is from Nanny Doodle. Would you like to live around here? To which I replied, oh, yes, I'd love to live here. This is a great area. And my mother swung around in the front seat and said, huh? What did you say? It was then I realized it was not her voice and asked me that question. And I sat staring at her in shock. I ended up moving to a house 2 weeks later, 50 meters from the spot where I heard the voice. Coincidence? I love that because I'm going to say something that is kind of taboo. But this is for my life. This is what it feels like. Yes, we have free will. We have free will, period. I believe that. But then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, they don't want me to shift off this path right now. And I could if I wanted to, but it would be really hard if I did. And yes, by the way, they have spoken to me, stuff like that. But in regards to like the house, it's like she could have been her mom could have been distracting her, looking for a different neighborhood. And they said, no. This is where you're supposed to be. It's really weird. It's not like I don't believe in free will, but I do believe they're here keeping us all on our path.
Where we're like keeping us in alignment so that we don't have to stray too far away.
Yeah. Yes. Like, especially say relationships. No, you're not supposed to leave this relationship. No, or something like, or it's time, you better leave this relationship and you physically can't stay. Like stuff like that, or a job, or, it's just going to stay. It's really interesting. I don't know if y'all have had that experience. Yeah, yay or nay?
I mean, I know in life when you're making a big decision, such as buying a house, moving out of state. I mean, there's so many big decisions that are thrown on our plate every single day that sometimes if you just take a moment to quiet your mind, you're going to hear the answer kind of like she did. I mean, let's say she has 5 homes sitting in front of her and she's looking at those papers and they all have so many similar qualities, but where's the right fit? And the fact that she heard it, that's a blessing. And the fact that she tuned into it and ended up choosing that house, I just think that is divine intervention, either from the subconscious because you quieted your mind down enough to hear your own thoughts, or from spirit guides, or maybe they're one and the same. Maybe they work hand in hand.
I mean, I would agree with both of those statements. I think sometimes we get nudged to step into our discomfort too. I think that we can also kind of stand on our own foot too when we are looking at forward movement. I know for me, Carissa, you said, have you guys ever experienced something like that? And I'm like, yeah, look at the past year. Like, that's when my life has been the universe, like, kicking me out and, like, me to do things and stuff like that. But it's also giving me, a little bit of the reprieve that I've needed too. So while there's a ton of change, there's also a lot of really good as well. And I know, the clicking that I was just talking about, where something you had said earlier really made sense, is when we fight against what the universe is trying to point out. The biggest example I can use is, if we're working a job that we're not supposed to be in, and we are waking up with anxiety, having nightmares, really it's impacting our mental health, but we are staying there because I need a job. I need a job. I need a job. Until something happens where it clicks in the brain and it's like, well, maybe if I leave this job, I'll find the one that I'm supposed to. Maybe I do need to step away and actually put myself first, as opposed to just continuing to do what I can to essentially make that money.
I really like that one, because I just always think about that, how I'm very rebellious by nature, right? I love Zillow. I'm like, I probably get on Zillow every day and dream about houses in other states. And energetically, it's like, nope, you're supposed to stay here. I'm like, fine.
And I really do love the moments that the spirit guides pick to get through to us. I remember this from like a 4 or 5-year-old child. I was in the car. My parents were driving. We were going to a friend's house. And clear as day, like 2 people were sitting in the car with me. I hear them saying, and they're talking about me. Is she going to be okay? Like, do we have to worry about her here? Like, they were watching over me and protecting me. And
who said that?
Remembers that from 4 or 5 years old.
Wait, your parents said that, or your guy?
No, my parents weren't saying it. It wasn't their conversation. It was somebody else in the car, but there were only a couple of us in the car. My sister and brother wouldn't be saying that, but I definitely heard this conversation, and to this day, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh my gosh, Stacy, that looks so good. My lips are so jealous. She's putting on some moisturizing lip stuff.
It is lip gloss.
Oh,
it's my favorite.
Well, she was putting it on so she could share her Reddit story.
Oh, yeah.
My lips.
Your turn.
So I found one, and it's based off of the question of, like, what is the creepiest and most unexplained paranormal thing that's happened to you? Because I was like,
let's just go for it. Let's get that.
So one of the stories that was shared was by Jade Legume, however you say that, Jade Legume. And it was shared like 8 years ago, I think. When I was growing up, I was tight with the daughter of my dad's cousin. So my second cousin, I suppose. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Her name was Lisa. We grew much closer as teenagers. Too close, really. Anyway, where
is this going?
I haven't fully read this yet, so that surprised me as well. So we'll just keep going. Anyway, we wised up a little and went our separate ways when it was time for college. Okay, fair. A few years passed and I had moved on. One night I got up to go to the bathroom, didn't bother to turn on the lights. I was washing my hands and glanced in the mirror. There she was. Lisa was standing in the doorway behind me. I heard the echo of her voice. She told me that she still loved me and always would. She then turned around and walked out of sight. I stood holding onto the sink for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I calmed myself down and decided it had to just be a dream. I tried to go back to bed. My pillow smelled like her. She could have been in the room seconds ago. I lay back down, and as I drifted off to sleep, I felt her warm, familiar presence against my back. Kind of.
Can I ask a question? Lisa's dead?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
The next morning, there was no sign of her, no scent, no indent in the covers. I wrote it off as a dream. I got a call from my mom later that day. She told me Lisa had passed a few days earlier.
Oh.
She had been killed by her boyfriend.
Oh.
Got drunk, and that's we don't need to dig into that, but I guess she stopped by to see me one last time to say goodbye before she moved on.
Oh.
Here's to you 20 years later. Yeah.
Oh. That's so
Holy cow. So I pulled that and I kind of glanced at it. I didn't really like read it in depth, so I wasn't sure where we were going with Lisa. I did see the name.
So that is about to take a turn somewhere else.
Oh, you and I both. I was like, what am I reading?
Chicka bone bone.
Isn't it interesting though that it all kind of ties back in together with everything that we've read? When we lose people that we are really or have been really close to in life, a lot of times they tend to come and say goodbye one last time.
And it's a spiritual awakening too.
Yeah.
You start to question things.
And then we start questioning everything from there. So
that's so powerful. I have never, when I've had a loved one pass away, have them like stop in and say goodbye as they're transitioning. And I know so many people have had that experience. I had a parent who had that experience. I kind of am grumpy I haven't had one of those experiences.
So I know for me, I have not had that much of a significant experience. And I know, like, at least I know for me why. And it's because of my fear factor. My guides know me well enough to know that if I was to get up in the middle of the night, use the bathroom, wash my hands, and look up and see someone behind me, I would I would scream. Like, I like the reaction and what they were aiming for would be totally lost.
But here's like my grandmother, and this is really interesting. My grandmother, grandfather, and aunt were all in this liminal space before they fully transition. It's really interesting. That's another episode. But my grandmother and my aunt, once they fully transitioned, nada.
Interesting.
Nada. Nothing. Grandpa, yeah. Uncle, yeah. A little bit here and there. And then now, nothing at all. And that's so weird. We're actually talking about it right now because this morning I woke up going, why aren't they around? Why aren't they talking to me? And it's just, it's almost like it's time to move on. It's time to let go. It's time to move forward. I understand that, but I don't understand that some parts. But Michelle, yeah, it's weird. Like, yeah, I had it, but then boom, gone. Nothing.
Well, I think the people that have it are the people that really need that closure.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that it's boom, it's gone, it's because it's time for you to heal.
But it's also, my grandmother was not like super happy. And my aunt was just like, I'm here. Hello, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And my grandfather was like, I'm here to give you wisdom and I'm here to guide you for some more. And it's really interesting because a lot of their personality or who they were as a human. We got to talk about that liminal space in another episode. It's very interesting.
I'm curious, so we can definitely plan for it.
And I'd love to talk about that. And while, I haven't had them visit me on the way out to say goodbye, the closest that I've ever come was when my grandmother was passing. I think I've shared this before. In life, she was divorced. Her family had passed long before her. And I was very concerned about her arriving in heaven in that next space and not having anybody there to greet her. I mean, it was weighing so heavy on my heart. And so I prayed to my other grandparents, just be there to meet her. And probably at the time she passed away, I felt something. I was in bed by myself. It wasn't my husband getting frisky. I felt something squeeze my leg to acknowledge they heard me. And then I got the message she passed. So that did happen. But she didn't stop by on her way to say goodbye.
Yeah, but that is a goodbye too, though.
It is a goodbye in a sense. And then my pastor who passed away, I had a dream that I saw him. I didn't have time to say hello. And I'm like, oh, next time I will. And then I found out the next morning he passed. So that has happened, but not anyone does just stop by and.
Yeah. Yeah, and my aunt wasn't stopping by to say bye. She was just like, check me out. It was not, it was like, it's like, okay.
But this is such a fascinating topic. These Reddit stories really do inspire so many great conversations because so many people are out there having these experiences and we just need to talk about them because they help us grow too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I only go to Reddit when I want really true, honest reviews about a product. I don't go to stories. So I love talking and doing these because I don't read about these. I just go and do product reviews.
I just have to get better about it and figure out how to use the app and what words to use. It's kind of like social media. You have to put the right words in. So that's what I need to focus on.
I go in it like my spirit guides. You tell me where I go, and I'm like, it's meant to be, because I don't want to learn new app.
I love that, because I went on and I typed in paranormal, and I got all of the paranormal movies and like reviews of the movies. I watched it, so you don't have to. And I was like, that's not what I'm. I'm gonna guess that this is a great place for us to wrap this episode up. So
sure is.
I'm just gonna say, stay classy.
Stay sassy.
And stay absolutely badassy.
Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of 3 Cups and a Dash of Spirituality. If you like what you heard, please know that we have a full library of episodes now available on your favorite podcasting platform. You can listen to it now, or you can download it to listen to later. Also, if you'd like to give us a review, we'd appreciate it. We love connecting with listeners, and thank you in advance.